Okay. Hi, I'm Kai.
I'm Michaela.
And welcome back to Generational Talks, where we're going to be analyzing the generations of, in this book, Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee.
We'll be going book by book. This will be about book 1.
Next episode will be about book 2.
And then the third episode will be about book 3.
This seems like choreographed that we're like breaking, but we're working together. We're just a team like that. We're just awesome. So, we're gonna go by generation by generation. I know that the books aren't specifically split up by generations. There's some overlapping. It's more about the monumental event that kind of changes it. But we're gonna be kind of going over like where these characters are throughout the generations. So in this first episode, our first one, we're gonna be talking about Generation 1, which is gonna, just to summarize what's going on in book 1. We're just going to be going over kind of Sunja's passage from her homeland, from the motherland to the homeland in Japan.
Yes.
And kind of her adjustment, some different characters. We're going to be covering Sunja and Isaac in this one.
Yes. Oh, and through this, we're going to be using a protocol called text rendering.
Yep.
Where basically we just go through a sentence, phrase, and word of a passage we pick out. And
talk about
find
its significance.
About the importance.
Yes, exactly. So we both chose one passage each for each generation. So let's get started because we don't want to waste your time.
Exactly.
We're here to analyze. So we are in the generational car talk. So I'm going to start up this car and we're going to chat while looking at the beauty of fall in Alpharetta this time of year.
Course. Oh my god, the leaves are so pretty.
So you're going to hear some nice car sounds. But yeah, we're taking off. So we decided we wanted to start with Michaela's passage on this one because we're going like chronological. Talk a little bit about what Sunja's going through.
Okay, so I chose psychoanalytic as like is my what's it called? The lens.
Yeah, you got it.
Yes. The lens that we're going through, and basically we wrote it down somewhere, didn't we?
We have our plan. We have a plan here.
Yeah, we have a plan here. Basically, all that looks at is just like what you think that the the character is going through at the time, like what you think they're going through at the time and what they're thinking about.
Hence the prefix psycho.
Yes. And so the passage that I picked was when Sunja was first going to, what was it, Osaka, yeah. Yeah, Osaka. And she was looking at all these different things and she was like, in my mind, I felt like I had already been here. But the only reason she was thinking that was because Hansu had told her about it.
Yeah.
Like, for me, my first sentence was, she was a country girl, but she had heard about all of these things. But the only reason that she had heard about them was because of Ko Hansu. And
Michaela, how do you think that kind of applies about her generation? Because they're very 3 different times, especially because of the World War and historical context going on at the time. So what do you think that says about Generation 1?
Well, I just think that it's really important because it's like she wasn't supposed to be with him because of like who she was, but also like who he was. Because it's like he already had a wife, but he didn't have kids, so it's like, or he didn't have a son, so he wanted someone else.
Yeah, he had daughters.
Right.
Which that says a lot about the time period.
Right. So it's like, but also it's like she got pregnant and ended up marrying another man.
Oh yeah, which was scandal at the time.
Right.
I mean, in modern times, I feel like that's kind of normal.
Like that'd be kind of like nowadays.
It'd be like a happy ending.
Right.
Like finding someone who loves you, you know.
But like then it was like a miracle to her.
Yeah.
And then my phrase that I chose was Sunja remain quiet. I feel like that's a very key part, especially with women at the time too, because women were supposed to be quiet. They were expected to be quiet and not say anything about it, like anything about their husband, what their husbands did.
And something that I just want to foreshadow is that when we talk about these generations, we're going to be comparing and contrasting. We're going to be talking about the identity, maybe how it shifts throughout the time changes. But just to foreshadow, a passage in passage 3 talks about Sunja, and she's acting very similarly, being silent, because you don't get changed completely. How you're raised, and this is a very integral part of Sunja's life.
Right.
So this is going to stick with her. So that's just something to look out for. I mean, like, her identity at this time is just, like, survival, being a woman.
Trying to make sure her kids survive and they have the best. And it's like, I feel like, I don't know, as much as it is, like, expected for women to be quiet, I feel like it's also, I don't know, it's just a part of who she is too. Because I feel like she'd be the type of person that would be like, sit and think about certain things before she says something. And so
that's her for sure.
Trying to take in all these new things, even though she's been like told about it and she's like lived through it, she's still seeing this for the first time. So she's still trying to just like take everything in.
But still staying silent as that woman in this generation, in that time period.
Right?
Like, staying true to that identity. What's the word you chose?
I chose uprooted. I feel like that's such a powerful word in that, because it's like, I don't know, she, like, as it was said in, like, the sentence, she was a country girl, but also it's like, she was taken from that to go live somewhere else, because this man was nice enough just to marry her.
And I mean, uprooted, it really shows, like, how flimsy women were.
Right?
Like,
it's like
being tossed around, uprooted, just because of who she decided to get down dirty with.
Right? Like, I mean, like, I won't get too much into that, because I feel like
that's why I used the term down and dirty, but the book covers it pretty well. But yeah, absolutely. And just a transfer, I mean, me and Michaela chose our passages individually before reconvening and discussing it in class, but I chose a passage about Isaac around the same time when he's getting settled in, talking to his brother about everything going on. And I just want to say how stark the contrast is about, I mean, definitely looking at it through the lens of feminism, just how different it is and how different their adjustments are.
Whose adjustments?
Both of them. I mean, Sunja and Isaac's adjustments getting into those. Okay, it's a completely different land. Even though, Isaac obviously has more experience with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, the passage that I chose is when, they're getting settled in on one of their first nights, and Isaac is talking to his brother. He's like, hey, but like, I moved here because of this reason. His brother's like, you're too nice, you're gonna get in trouble. And it was all these different things. And so he's kind of talking about how his brother's just so worried. And he doesn't really know how to react to all this worriedness and, like, how things are in the state right now and how he wants to, like, speak up and be Christian even though that is not the way to go into the emperor right now. And so my sentence was, protesting was for young men without families. And I feel like that perfectly displays...
Ooh, I just want to add in a little something, because it's, like, before he married Sunja, he was, like, I would just, like, he basically said, like... religion to me means so much.
Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Sorry. Continue.
You're getting my theme here.
I'm sorry, bro. Like, oh my goodness.
No, it's a very good quote because, I mean, Isaac wants to take charge. I feel like that's something that a man can do in this generation.
Yeah.
Is I want to protest. I want to take charge. So Isaac's like whole thing is religion. He's very religious. He wants to. He truly believes what he believes. Doesn't give a fuck about. Oh. Miss Green, I'm so sorry, but we are 7 minutes in and I'm not redoing this.
You know what? We're just gonna bleep over that.
Yeah, okay. I feel really comfortable in this conversation right now.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Please
don't take points off.
Yeah, please don't take points off. That is my bad. But I also know that, like, you don't really care that much.
He doesn't care that much. So. Yep.
I was just so passionate. So sorry.
Exactly.
He doesn't really have a care about. He doesn't have a care towards like anything like that because he doesn't really have much to lose as a nice, like, light skin, like, Japanese passing man.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we're really getting into kind of the dynamic and the adjusting with Sunja when, like, our phrase is safety of others. So, that kind of goes into, like, he's now starting to care about others. He has other people to worry about. Like, there's another sentence in the passage that says, like, these ideals seem secondary to his job in Sunja.
Oh my God.
It seems that somehow...
So good.
It seems that somehow the addition to Sunja in his life is hindering it.
Right, it kind of just, like, brought out this different side of him in a way. Because before, he just worried about, not himself, but what he could do for other people. So he never got that time to just care about someone else, specifically.
But if we're looking at it from the lens of, like, what's going on in this generation, like, men are expected to marry, this different stuff. But the second a woman enters his life, it becomes less of, like, I'm a man, I can achieve whatever I want to achieve in this time period.
Yeah.
And it becomes, okay, now I have, a very gentle, like, flimsy woman in my life. I need to take care of her. I need to be in mind of her safety. And I think my ideals are now going to change.
Like, that was, for me, I'm sorry, that's so sweet. Like,
it's sweet, but it says a lot about the generation and how women just...
Oh, well,
not only do they face difficulties as, like, an identity, like, being a woman, but they also, like, put a burden on others, which is not the intention, of course.
I don't think he saw it as a burden, though. I think he was, like, kind of happy to, like, take care of someone.
But his brother saw it as a burden.
Well, that's his brother. His brother was, like, kind of iffy about things. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Isak, he kind of saw it as, like, everyone was always taking care of him. And now he finally had someone else to take care of. So I think that he felt really happy about that. But if he's
seeing his woman as someone who needs to be taken care of, and then she's seeing him as a protector. She doesn't take, like, yes, she does stuff for him, but it's not in, like, a I'm gonna take care of you perspective. Yeah. Showing, like, the dichotomy between women and men, you know?
Yeah, I feel like moving further ahead in the book, I feel like she kind of realizes that she, like, really loves him, finally.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think...
way too long, though.
Now, in this point, I mean, I analyzed mine through reader's response, because I looked through my passage and I was like, what are the different interpretations I can get from this? Because, I mean, we talked about, does Isaac feel like she's a burden? Does she feel like a burden? All this different stuff. What about his brother? And I feel like that really helped me connect with... that helped me connect with, where people stood and the different opinions. Something I noticed is that men had very harsh opinions and women had very little ones, which, call me crazy, but doesn't that connect to how Sunja remained quiet?
It does.
It does.
On my pen. Yes.
So before we, like, really dive into that, like, my main idea, I think, is, Isaac just settling in to Osaka, and maybe, I think the main idea is that his ideals changed because of a woman, and he had power, and he still has his power, but he's choosing, because he's a good man, to, like, really care.
I think it changed for the better, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that's against the norm of the time period, you know?
Yeah, and that's fair.
What do you think the main idea of your passage was? What do you think the takeaway is?
Well, okay, well, the whole thing with that, I think it's more about Sunja and what her, like, how she was perceived at the time. You know what I mean? And how women were perceived in the time. Because, like, they were very quiet. They had to be very, like, keep to themselves. And they couldn't say much about, like, anything that, like what you were saying earlier, they couldn't say anything, like, to Isak about.
And that's very against my passage, which is kind of,
like what you were saying earlier, the contrast and comparing.
Yeah, like, that's very against my passage, is, like, we're just talking about how, like, he didn't want to remain quiet. He wanted to be protesting, but protesting was for young men without families. You feel?
Yeah.
So what do we think that the overarching idea and theme we can gather up for Generation 1? Because we've talked a lot about silence and burdens and a lot of stuff that's just, like, very socio, like, political, just kind of poopiness. Like, this sounds like a lot of burden for everyday life.
I don't know. I just feel like their whole, like, their ideals changed. If that makes sense. Like, their main, like... Not necessarily morals, but what's the word for it? You know what I mean?
Their ideals. Their ideals changed because of the setting that they were in.
The setting and, like, who they were around, who they had to take care of. Just, like, what was there and available at the time.
Yeah. I mean, they had to adjust to what Japan wanted of them. They had to adjust.
That too, yeah.
I mean, if it was up to Sunja, she would have,
that was huge.
Yeah, wow. I mean, she just would have, ended up with a baby being a single mother. But, like, that was because of her ideals, which were very outside of the norm. I feel like another woman... Which is not what Hansu wanted. He didn't want any other woman.
No, he didn't.
But if it did go like that, then she would have ended up being with him. Being with Hansu. That would have been the norm.
I don't know about you, but do you ever think about, like, in the book, it's like, what if she stuck with Hansu? What if she stuck with him?
I don't think that would have been Sunja. Because she never would have done that. We saw her raw reaction.
And I know, but, like, what if she did? Like, at the end of the day, what if she, like, begged him to come back? Like, you know how,
she was struggling. The day after... She was struggling, yeah.
You know in the book how the day after, or not the day after,
she,
but,
like, went to the beach to see if he was there again.
Yeah, and then, like, the day after she left, or, like, something like that, when she was meeting up with Hansu again, he was saying, the day after you had left, I had went over to there. Mm-hmm. What if she had waited? What if she had waited and then, like, Isak never married her? Like, what would have happened? What if she took him back?
Something that I've noticed about this book is, like, every single choice has such a repercussion, good or bad.
Oh, yeah.
Like, repercussion has a negative connotation, but there is a result to every single action, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's all depending on, like, your identity. If you're a woman, if you're a man, if if A connects to B, if you're following the norms, if you're not. I mean, it even got to the point where it was, like, political. Like, you were gonna get, I mean, we are gonna get into, Generation 2, where, Isaac's arrested.
Oh, he was such a sweet man. He was such a sweet man.
Yeah, he was. He's my little baby boy, but he got arrested because that's how extreme it went. He didn't want, yes, he gave up a lot of his faith for Sunja, but you know what he didn't do? Was, like, give up his faith, like, completely.
I know, right?
And that's what ended up in him in jail.
Like, I feel like he said, and he, like, thought that he, like, it would be secondary. And sorry, you just brought back this, like, whole thing. But did he really subconsciously? Like, there was no way. Because if he did, he would have just said everything against it, and he would have gone back to Sunja. He wouldn't have suffered as much.
But guess
you know
what?
I mean?
Yeah, but guess what? He did, because I feel like that's the men. The man can. Like,
they have the power to do that.
Yeah, there are just so many powerful passages that I wish we had the time to cover.
Oh my goodness, there's so much. There's so much to cover in this book in general.
Because when Kyung-hee wanted to get a job, and, her husband was like, no,
Yeah, okay, also, Yosef, he's some very strong opinions.
What a guy.
He's some very strong opinions, but that I feel like contrast so much with Isak's and what, like, he believes in. Because you know how, like, Isak is, like, more of, like, kind of very religious, but then Yosef is, like, better yourself. It doesn't matter about religion or anything like that. Better off yourself. Make sure you're taken care of and your family is.
Oh, yeah, he had some very strong opinions.
He also was like, no, you can't work.
But I mean, let's reel it into kind of a cohesive, like, conclusion, because
you're right. Sorry.
No, this book is so much to discuss, but we talked about our main ideas, some other passages, kind of how, like, identity plays a huge role.
Oh my goodness.
In Generation 1. And we'll see. I mean, in future podcast episodes, we will be going over how, also that little beep was my Tesla telling me that there's a green light. I love this car. Love it. But in future books, we're gonna be comparing and contrasting the generations. Since this is the first episode, since we're just doing Generation 1, we don't really have anything to compare it to, and we don't want to spoil anything yet. So we're just kind of talking about the cohesiveness of what is Generation 1, what are the vibes of it, what's going on, which we talked about. And, I mean, we're going to be talking about Generation 2 next episode, and we're going to dive into, now that a good, generation has passed, now that we're in a new life, how does that differ from Generation 1? So that's a little foreshadowing there. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, it breaks my heart a little because I feel like this book is so masterfully written that I'm put in the shoes of, like, Sunja and Generation 1, which, in my opinion, is, like, definitely my least favorite generation, just the old-timey ways. Like, the book
she was so restricted and limited with what she could do.
And the book gets more heartbreaking as it goes on.
Oh, God.
But considering identity-wise, like, the base of it was pretty dang bad.
I know, yeah.
So, any last thoughts, Michaela?
I don't know, I just feel like what I said earlier, how she was very restricted, but then Isak was very much like the I can do this, I can do that.
He was like a favor to Sunja that he was...
But still, he was still restricted because he was Korean.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really it.
And I want something from McDonald's. What do you feel about that?
That sounds amazing.
So we're going to get some McDonald's.
A little McFlurry?
I think I might... No, I don't know. Well, we're going to get back up once we're eating. I'll update you when I got McDonald's. Because we're doing a car podcast, Generational Car Talk.
Yep.
And, yeah. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you so much. This is our ending
first
to
episode.
our first. Yep.
Woo.
Woo.